My Navy SEAL uncle refused to go near the ocean after retirement. He finally told me why. My uncle Marcus served 15 years as a Navy SEAL before retiring at 38 and moving to Denver, which is about as far from the ocean as you can get in America. He bought a house in the suburbs, got a job doing security consulting, and lived a quiet life that seemed completely normal, except for one thing. He refused to go anywhere near large bodies of water. Not just the ocean. Lakes, rivers, even swimming pools made him visibly uncomfortable. My dad invited him to our lake house once, and Marcus had a full panic attack in the driveway before we even got inside. He sat in his truck with his hands shaking, saying he couldn't do it, that he needed to leave immediately. My family thought he had PTSD from his service, which made sense given what SEALs go through. We stopped inviting him to anything involving water and pretended not to notice how he'd take the long route to avoid driving over bridges, or how he kept his shower time under 3 minutes. For 12 years, that's how things stayed. Marcus living alone in Denver, working his security job, and avoiding water like it would kill him. I visited him occasionally since I went to college in Boulder. The visits were always a bit tense. Marcus was friendly but distracted, like he was constantly listening for something. His house had no decorations, no personal items, just functional furniture and a go bag by the front door that he refused to explain. He also had this weird habit of checking every faucet in the house multiple times a day, making sure they were completely off. The call came 3 weeks ago. Marcus's voice on the phone sounded wrong, hollow and tired in a way I'd never heard before. He said he needed to see me, that there was something important he had to explain before it was too late. I drove down that same day and found him sitting on his porch looking 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him. He'd lost weight, his hands were shaking, and he had dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in weeks. "We need to talk about why I left the SEALs," he said without any greeting or small talk. About what happened during my last deployment in 2009. We went inside and Marcus pulled out a bottle of whiskey, poured himself a large glass, and drained half of it before starting to talk. His team had been deployed to the Persian Gulf for a routine training exercise with Allied forces, standard stuff they'd done hundreds of times. Diving operations, underwater demolition practice, navigation drills in deep water. On the 4th day, they were doing a night dive, 6 team members going down to 200 feet to practice equipment recovery. Marcus was the team leader, responsible for making sure everyone stayed together and followed protocol. The dive started normally. Clear water, good visibility with their lights, calm conditions on the surface. They reached the target depth and began the exercise, locating and securing training equipment that had been placed on the sea floor. That's when Marcus noticed something wrong with the water itself. The temperature dropped suddenly, going from 72 degrees to what felt like near freezing in seconds. His dive computer confirmed it, showing impossible readings that shouldn't have been possible in those waters. Then the current changed, not gradually like a natural shift, but instantly, pulling them all in the same direction with force that shouldn't exist at that depth. Marcus signaled his team to abort the exercise and start ascending, but 2 of his men were already being dragged away into the darkness, their lights disappearing faster than they could swim. He went after them, fighting against the current, and that's when he saw what was pulling them. Marcus stopped talking and finished his whiskey, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the glass. "What did you see?" I asked. He looked at me with eyes that held 12 years of nightmares. Something that shouldn't exist. Something that lives in the deep water and sometimes comes up to feed. My team called it in as a rip current incident. 2 men lost, presumed drowned. Bodies never recovered. But I know what really happened to them, and I know it's still down there, waiting. Marcus refilled his glass, his eyes never meeting mine. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. It had tentacles. Not like an octopus, these were longer, thinner, almost translucent. And eyes. God, the eyes. He shuddered. Dozens of them, glowing blue-green in the darkness. They weren't animal eyes. They were intelligent, watching, calculating. He took another long drink. I saw it wrap around Peterson first. The tentacles moved like they were tasting him. Then it just pulled him down. Reynolds went after him, and it got him too. I tried to follow, but something stopped me, like the water itself became solid. Marcus stood up abruptly, walking to the window to check the street outside before continuing. Commander Brightwell was waiting on the ship. The moment we surfaced and reported what happened, everything changed. He ordered an immediate evacuation, classified the entire mission, and had us airlifted out within the hour. They took our dive computers, our cameras, everything. He ran his hand over his face. For 3 days, they kept us isolated on a base somewhere. Military intelligence questioned me for hours. They wanted every detail, what it looked like, how it moved, whether it made any sounds. They showed me photographs of similar sightings dating back to the 1940 seconds, asking if that's what I saw. "What did they tell you it was?" I asked. "Officially, nothing. They made us sign non-disclosure agreements. Threatened us with treason charges if we ever spoke about it. Called it a rip current incident in all the paperwork. But I overheard 2 officers talking when they thought I wasn't listening. One of them said, 'It's the 3rd contact this year. They're getting bolder.'" Marcus pulled up his sleeve, revealing a strange pattern of circular marks on his forearm, 5 perfectly aligned discolorations about the size of quarters. The medical team found these during my examination. They weren't there before the dive. They took tissue samples, blood work, brain scans. Never told me what they found, but I was put on a cocktail of antibiotics and antipsychotics for 6 months after. He rolled his sleeve back down. The nightmares started immediately. Every night, I'd feel myself being pulled underwater, those eyes watching me as I struggled to breathe. Sometimes I'd wake up gasping, my lungs burning like they were filled with water. My sheets would be soaking wet. Marcus walked to his bathroom, motioning for me to follow. He pointed to the corner of the ceiling where a small water stain had formed. "This appeared 3 days ago. There's no pipe above it, no leak source. The plumber couldn't explain it." He pointed to similar stains in the hallway, the kitchen, his bedroom. "They show up randomly, disappear, then reappear somewhere else." He leaned closer to the bathroom mirror, staring intently at his reflection. "But the worst part is what I see in the water. Any water. Look closely at reflective surfaces, puddles, sinks, even condensation on a glass, and you'll see faces watching, not human faces." "Something else." Marcus pulled out his phone, showing me a group photo of his SEAL team. There were 6 of us on that dive. Me, Peterson, Reynolds, Keller, Martinez, and Jackson. Peterson and Reynolds disappeared that night. Martinez killed himself 3 years later, drowned in his bathtub in a locked bathroom. And Keller, his voice cracked. I found out last week that Keller was found in his swimming pool. Medical examiner said he'd been dead for days, but his body showed no signs of decomposition, just those same marks we all had. He gripped my shoulder hard. That leaves just me and Jackson stopped answering my calls 2 days ago. Marcus looked at me with desperate eyes. They're coming for us, through the water. They've been watching us all this time, and now they're coming to finish what started in the Persian Gulf. A faucet in the kitchen suddenly turned on by itself. The sound of running water made Marcus freeze, his face draining of color. They know I've told you, he whispered. Now they'll be watching you too. I didn't sleep that night after leaving Marcus's house. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those tentacles he described, felt phantom currents pulling at my limbs. The sound of water dripping from my bathroom faucet kept me on edge until I finally got up at 3 a.m. and tightened it until my knuckles were white. When morning came, I called in sick to work and started researching deep-sea anomalies. At first, I tried to convince myself that Marcus was just suffering from PTSD, that the stress of losing 2 men had created a hallucination his mind couldn't reconcile. But the more I dug, the less certain I became. There were reports of unexplained phenomena in the Persian Gulf dating back decades, fishing vessels disappearing in calm waters, military training exercises aborted for environmental conditions that meteorological data didn't support. I found a forum where former naval personnel discussed strange occurrences, posts that would mysteriously disappear hours after being published. I called Marcus around noon. He answered on the first ring, his voice hoarse. You've been looking into it, haven't you? He said without preamble. How did you know? Because they know. My bathroom flooded this morning. No broken pipes, no explanation, just 6 inches of water that appeared while I was sleeping. His voice cracked. And there was something in it, moving. I saw it just for a second before it disappeared down the drain. I drove back to his house immediately. The change in his appearance was shocking. He looked like he'd aged years overnight. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling constantly. The kitchen table was covered with printouts, handwritten notes, and maps of the Persian Gulf. It's getting worse, he said, pacing nervously. The water stains are spreading. I keep hearing dripping sounds with no source. And last night, he lowered his voice. Last night, I woke up choking on water. My lungs were full of it, Adrian. I was drowning in my own bed. He led me to his bedroom closet and pulled out a metal lockbox from beneath a pile of clothes. The combination lock opened with practiced ease. What I'm about to show you could get us both killed, he said, extracting a manila folder. These are classified documents I was never supposed to have. I made copies before they took our equipment. Inside were photographs, grainy underwater shots that made my skin crawl. Most were too dark to make out details, but one showed a clear image of what looked like a massive translucent appendage wrapping around a diving apparatus. The military has been covering these encounters up for years, Marcus said, spreading the photos across the table. We weren't the first team to encounter them. There have been at least 7 documented incidents since the 1,970 seconds. They call them deep water anomalies in the official reports, but the men who've seen them know better. He showed me a map with locations marked in red. Every spot is where a team reported contact. Notice anything? They formed a rough circle around a deep trench in the Persian Gulf. Whatever these things are, they're protecting something down there, something the military wants badly enough to keep sending teams despite the risks. As Marcus talked, I noticed a small puddle forming under his refrigerator. Water was seeping out, spreading across the tile floor. I pointed to it wordlessly. Shit, he whispered, backing away. It's happening again. We watched as the puddle expanded unnaturally, moving against gravity, creeping toward us like it had purpose. Marcus grabbed my arm. Don't touch it. Don't let it touch you. The water stopped advancing, forming a perfect circle in the center of the kitchen. Then, impossibly, it began to ripple, as if something was disturbing it from below. They're watching us, Marcus whispered. They can see through any water connection pipes, drains, even moisture in the air. They're connected to all of it somehow. I felt sick as I realized the implications. That means they could be watching anywhere there's water? He nodded grimly. Showers, sinks, toilets, puddles after rain. Once they know you exist, they never stop watching. I thought about the leaky faucet in my apartment bathroom, dripping steadily all night. Had something been watching me through it? The idea made my skin crawl. There's more, Marcus said, pulling out another document. The men who survive encounters don't stay alive long. Peterson and Reynolds disappeared that night. Martinez drowned in his bathtub 3 years later. Keller found in his pool. And now Jackson. His phone rang, startling us both. Marcus checked the screen, his face draining of color. It's Jackson, he whispered, answering the call on speaker. The voice that came through was barely recognizable, wet and gurgling like the person was speaking underwater. Marcus, they found me. I tried to run. Inland. Doesn't matter. Choking sounds followed. They're coming for you next. The files. They know you have them. Get out now. The line went dead. Marcus tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. We need to leave, he said, frantically gathering the documents. If they got to Jackson, we're next. Before we could move, the puddle on the floor began expanding again, spreading rapidly across the kitchen. At the same time, water started trickling from every faucet in the house, a slow, deliberate flow that no amount of twisting could stop. I backed toward the door, my heart pounding. Marcus, we need to go now. He was shoving documents into his go bag when we heard vehicles pulling up outside. Through the window, I saw black SUVs with government plates blocking the driveway. Men in dark suits were approaching the house. Military intelligence, Marcus hissed. They're here for the files. The water on the floor had reached the walls now, climbing up them like it was alive, defying all natural laws. And in every reflective surface, the microwave door, the chrome toaster, even the pooling water itself, I could see them, faces. Not human faces, but something else entirely, watching us with cold, calculating eyes. The bathroom window, Marcus said, grabbing his go bag. It's our only chance. As we moved toward the hallway, someone pounded on the front door. Mr. Marcus Sullivan, this is Major Brightwell. We need to speak with you immediately about classified materials in your possession. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Brightwell, the same commander Marcus had mentioned from the ship after the incident. After 12 years, they were still watching him. The water was rising faster now, and I swore I could see something moving beneath its surface. Something with long, thin appendages reaching toward us. Marcus looked at me, his eyes wild with fear and determination. Whatever happens, he said, don't let them convince you it wasn't real, and for God's sake, stay away from the water. The moment we heard those government vehicles pull up outside Marcus's house, something in me shifted. This wasn't paranoia anymore. This wasn't my uncle's PTSD or delusions. This was real. And they were coming for us. Go bag, Marcus hissed, grabbing the waterproof backpack by the door. Out the bathroom window, now. We moved quickly through the house as water continued to rise around our ankles. The liquid felt wrong against my skin, colder than it should be, with an unnatural viscosity that made each step feel like wading through syrup. Behind us, someone pounded on the front door. Mr. Sullivan, you have 30 seconds to open this door before we breach. Marcus yanked me into the bathroom and locked the door. They can't have these files, he whispered, shoving the classified documents deeper into his bag. They'll bury everything that happened. Everyone who died will have died for nothing. The small window above the toilet was barely big enough for us to squeeze through, but it was our only option. I went first, scraping my shoulders against the frame as I tumbled into the bushes below. Marcus followed, landing with surprising agility for a man his age. We heard the front door splinter open just as we sprinted for the tree line behind his property. Marcus's truck was parked 2 blocks away, a contingency measure he'd prepared years ago. We need to get to higher ground, he panted as we drove away from Denver, somewhere inland, away from any major water sources. Where are we going? I asked, watching the road behind us for any sign of pursuit. I have a place, a cabin in the mountains, no running water, no plumbing. Just bottled supplies and a generator. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I bought it cash, under a different name. Not even the military knows about it. The drive took 3 hours, winding up mountain roads that grew narrower and more treacherous with each mile. Marcus hardly spoke, his eyes constantly flicking to the rearview mirror. Occasionally, he'd mutter something about watching water or, they're still tracking us. By the time we reached the cabin, darkness had fallen. The structure was small but solid, perched on a rocky outcropping with a commanding view of the valley below. True to Marcus's word, there was no plumbing, just stacks of water bottles, canned food, and a small generator for electricity. We should be safe here, Marcus said, though he didn't sound convinced, at least for tonight. He locked the door, then methodically checked every window, securing them with both locks and small wooden wedges. From his go bag, he pulled out a satellite phone and a stack of papers. It's time you knew everything, he said, spreading the documents across a small table. What we're really dealing with. The papers contained photographs, reports, and hand-drawn diagrams that made my skin crawl. Detailed sketches of the creatures Marcus had encountered, not just tentacles, but complete anatomies of beings that looked like nothing I'd ever seen before. They're not new, Marcus explained, pointing to carbon dating results. They've been down there for thousands, maybe millions of years. The military calls them deep water entities, but that's just bureaucratic language for something they don't understand. He showed me sonar readings from the Persian Gulf Trench. They live in the deepest parts of the ocean, dormant for long periods, but they're waking up now. More sightings in the last decade than the previous 50 years combined. What do they want? I asked, my mouth dry. Marcus looked at me with hollow eyes. Us. They're predators, Adrian. Ancient ocean predators that see humans as the next stage in their evolution. What does that mean? They're not just killing us, they're selecting us, transforming us. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing those circular marks I'd seen before. These aren't injuries. They're attachment points, the beginning of a transformation process. A sudden gust of wind rattled the cabin windows, making us both jump. Outside, fog was rolling in, unusually thick for this altitude. That's not natural, Marcus whispered. Fog doesn't form like that up here. We watched in silence as the mist enveloped the cabin, cutting off our view of the surrounding forest. It pressed against the windows like a living thing, searching for a way in. They found us, Marcus said, his voice eerily calm. Somehow, they found us. I was about to ask how when I noticed something on the wooden floor, a trail of wet footprints leading from the front door toward the bedroom, footprints that hadn't been there minutes ago. Marcus, I whispered, pointing. He stared at the prints, his face draining of color. Check the door. Is it still locked? I moved cautiously to the entrance. The deadbolt was still firmly in place, the wooden wedges undisturbed. Nothing's been opened. Then how Marcus started, but was interrupted by a fit of coughing so violent it doubled him over. When he pulled his hand away from his mouth, it was covered in a black viscous liquid that looked disturbingly like the water that had pursued us in his house. Oh God, he gasped. It's happening faster than I thought. I helped him to a chair, trying to ignore how cold his skin felt, how the veins in his neck had taken on a bluish tint that pulsed with each labored breath. Listen to me, he said, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. They select certain people who've seen them, who know they exist. They mark them, then slowly transform them. Transform them into what? I asked, though I feared I already knew the answer. Into conduits, hybrids that can exist in both worlds, ours and theirs. They need intermediaries to prepare for what's coming. Another coughing fit seized him, more black liquid spattering the floor. Outside, the fog pressed closer, seeping through microscopic gaps around the windows. The temperature in the cabin plummeted until I could see my breath. They're surrounding us, Marcus whispered. Military too, probably. They'll be watching from a distance, waiting to see what happens. As if on cue, lights appeared in the valley below, vehicles moving up the mountain road. Marcus laughed, a hollow sound that turned into more coughing. Right on schedule. They want to contain this, study it. They've been trying to understand these entities for decades. I moved to the window, watching the approaching lights. We need to run, Marcus, now. When he didn't answer, I turned back to find him staring at his reflection in a small mirror on the wall. His eyes had changed. The whites now had a faint bluish glow, the pupils elongated into vertical slits. It's too late for me, he said softly. It's been too late since that night in the Persian Gulf. Before I could respond, a sound like rushing water filled the cabin. The wet footprints on the floor began to ripple, rising up to form a column of water that defied gravity. The liquid column twisted and reshaped itself until it vaguely resembled a human form, but with elongated limbs and what looked like tentacle-like appendages where fingers should be. Marcus stood facing it, seemingly unafraid. You've been watching us all this time, he said to the watery figure. Waiting. The entity made no sound I could hear, but Marcus nodded as if responding to words. I understand now, he said. I've always understood. He turned to me, his transformed eyes full of an emotion I couldn't name. Adrian, listen carefully. The go bag has everything you need. Evidence, coordinates, names. Get it to someone who will listen. I'm not leaving you, I protested. You have to. More black liquid dripped from the corner of his mouth. They want me. They've always wanted me, but you still have a chance. The watery figure extended an arm toward Marcus, who nodded again. They're coming in now, both sides, the entities and the military. You need to go out the back, down the ravine. There's a trail that leads to an old mining road. He pressed the satellite phone into my hand. Call the number labeled insurance once you're clear. They'll help you. Marcus, please. I'm already changing, Adrian. I can feel it inside me, but I can buy you time. He shoved me toward the back door. Go, now. Outside, I could hear vehicles approaching, engines cutting off, voices shouting commands. Marcus turned back to the water entity, his posture straightening as more black liquid leaked from his eyes and mouth. I accept what I am becoming, he said, but he goes free. The entity seemed to consider this, its watery form rippling with internal movement. Then it extended both arms, one toward Marcus, one toward the front door where military personnel were preparing to breach. Go, Marcus shouted at me, his voice no longer entirely human. I grabbed the go bag and ran for the back door, tears blurring my vision. Behind me, I heard the front door crash open, followed by shouting and what sounded like rushing water. I didn't look back as I plunged into the fog-shrouded forest, Marcus's final act of sacrifice burning in my memory. Whatever he was becoming, whatever he had become, he'd given himself to save me. And as I ran through the darkness, I swore I could feel water droplets on my skin, watching me, following me, waiting for their chance. I've been driving for 36 hours straight, stopping only for gas and to switch between the 3 burner phones Marcus packed in his go bag. The mountains are far behind me now. I'm somewhere in the Midwest, deliberately vague about my location, even in my own thoughts, as if the entities might be listening through the moisture in the air around me. Marcus's go bag was meticulously prepared. 3 changes of clothes, $8,000 in cash, a loaded Glock 19, the satellite phone, and a waterproof case containing all his documented evidence about the Persian Gulf incident. There's also a small notebook with handwritten coordinates, contact information, and what looks like a manifesto about the underwater civilization. I've holed up in a pay-by-the-week motel that doesn't ask questions, the kind of place with flickering neon and paper-thin walls where the desk clerk barely looked up when I paid cash for 2 weeks up front. First thing I did was cover the bathroom mirror with a towel and duct tape. Second thing was disconnecting the sink's drain pipe and plugging it with a rubber stopper. They're watching through water. Marcus's words echo in my head every time I hear a drip or see condensation forming on a window. 3 days after arriving, I notice a black SUV parked across the street. It stays there for hours, then disappears, only to return the next morning. On the 4th day, there's a knock at my door. Mr. Adrian Sullivan, a woman's voice, professional and calm. My name is Agent Melissa Hargrove. I'd like to speak with you about your uncle. I check through the peephole. She's alone, mid-40s, wearing a dark suit that screams government. The SUV is parked directly behind her. I'm not interested in talking. I call through the door. I understand your hesitation after what happened in Colorado, she says, but I think you'll want to hear what I have to say about Operation Deepwater. The name isn't one Marcus mentioned. It's either a trap or new information. How do I know you won't just take me into custody? Because if that was our intention, we would have done it already. Her voice drops lower. We've been watching you since you fled the cabin. If we wanted you, we'd have you. Against my better judgment, I open the door, keeping the chain on. Agent Hargrove looks tired, with dark circles under her eyes and a slight tremor in her right hand. May I come in? She asks. No water, I say firmly. No bottles, no cups, nothing. Something flickers across her face recognition, maybe even respect. Understood. I let her in, keeping the Glock visible in my waistband. She notices, but doesn't comment. Your uncle Marcus was a person of interest to a specialized division within the government. She begins, sitting on the edge of the bed, a division tasked with monitoring and containing certain anomalies. You mean the entities in the Persian Gulf? She nods. Among others, what Marcus encountered in 2009 wasn't the first contact, nor was it the last. We've been aware of their existence since 1947, when a Navy submarine documented unusual biological signatures at depths previously thought uninhabitable. And you've been covering it up ever since. Containing, she corrects. There's a difference. Covering up implies we understand what we're dealing with. We don't, not fully. What we do know is that these entities have been on Earth far longer than humans, primarily in the deepest ocean trenches. And they're becoming more active. I think of the black liquid. Marcus coughed up, his changing eyes. They're transforming people. Agent Hargrove studies me carefully. Yes. Selected individuals who've had direct contact. Your uncle was one of them. Why are you telling me this? Why not just silence me like you tried to silence Marcus? Because the situation has evolved. She leans forward. We're offering you a deal, Mr. Sullivan. Turn over all of Marcus's evidence, tell us everything he shared with you, and in exchange, we'll provide protection and answers. Protection from what? From what's happening to you. My blood runs cold. What are you talking about? She gestures to my arm. Check your left forearm. I roll up my sleeve slowly, already knowing what I'll find. 5 circular marks, perfectly aligned, just like the ones Marcus showed me. They weren't there yesterday. How I begin, but she cuts me off. It starts with the marks, then comes the sensitivity to light, changes in body temperature, vivid dreams of deep water. Eventually, physical transformations begin. Her voice is clinical, detached. We can slow the process, possibly even halt it, but only if you cooperate. I stare at the marks, feeling sick. What are they doing to us? Creating ambassadors, she says simply. Hybrids that can exist in both environments. They're preparing for something larger. What? Reclamation. She stands up, pacing the small room. These entities believe the surface world is rightfully theirs, that humans are temporary occupants who've polluted their domain. They're planning to take it back. I think of Marcus's final moments in the cabin, how he seemed to communicate with the water entity. And the government knows this? Certain elements within the government, yes. We've been monitoring increased activity across all major oceanic trenches. Unusual weather patterns, unexplained tidal anomalies, mass marine life migrations. It's accelerating. She pulls out a business card, placing it on the nightstand. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, the transformation will progress beyond our ability to intervene, and we'll be forced to take more permanent containment measures. After she leaves, I sit for hours, staring at the marks on my arm. They seem to pulse with my heartbeat, a constant reminder of what's happening inside me. I think about Marcus, about his years of isolation and paranoia that turned out to be completely justified. That night, I make my decision. Using one of the burner phones, I upload Marcus's evidence to multiple secure servers with timed release protocols, the satellite coordinates of the Persian Gulf incident. The classified reports detailing previous encounters, the photographs showing the entities, everything. Then I send encrypted links to journalists, researchers, and public figures across the globe, people who might believe, who might investigate further. I include my own account of what happened with Marcus, what Agent Hargrove revealed. Within hours, strange weather reports start coming in, unprecedented fog banks appearing simultaneously across coastal cities worldwide, unusual tidal patterns defying scientific explanation. In Norway, fishermen report glowing blue lights moving beneath the surface of fjords. My phone rings at 3 a.m. It's Agent Hargrove. What have you done? Her voice is tight with controlled panic. Given people a chance to know what's coming. I reply. You've accelerated everything. They know we've broken containment. They're responding. I hang up and turn on the television. Every news channel is covering the strange oceanic phenomena. Scientists offer rational explanations that sound hollow even to them. Military vessels are mobilizing worldwide. When I go to the bathroom to splash water on my face, I freeze. The towel covering the mirror has slipped, exposing a corner of the glass. In the reflection, I see not my own face, but Marcus's, his eyes now completely transformed, glowing with that eerie blue light. They're coming to the surface, his reflection says, lips not quite syncing with the words. It's too late to stop it now. Marcus? I whisper, touching the glass. Not exactly. Not anymore. The reflection ripples like disturbed water, but part of me remembers you, wanted to warn you. Warn me about what? The government announcement tomorrow. Limited disclosure. They'll claim it's a new marine species discovery. Don't believe them. It's much more. The reflection begins to fade. The transformation isn't what you think, Adrian. It's not a death. It's an evolution. Before I can respond, the mirror returns to normal, showing only my own haggard face, except my eyes have begun to change too, the whites taking on a faint bluish tinge. The next morning, just as Marcus's reflection predicted, the government holds a press conference announcing the discovery of a previously unknown deep-sea species with unusual biological capabilities. They classify it as a scientific breakthrough, promising more information as research continues. It's a half-truth, a controlled revelation to prevent panic while they prepare for what's really coming. I pack Marcus's go bag and check out of the motel. The marks on my arm have spread, and I can feel changes happening inside me, my lungs adapting, my vision shifting to see spectrums I never knew existed. I should be terrified, but instead, I feel a strange acceptance. As I drive toward the coast, drawn there by an instinct I don't fully understand, I record this final account, a warning for those who might still have time, a record of what happened to Marcus Sullivan, to me, and what's happening to our world. The water is rising, not just literally, but in every sense that matters, and something ancient is rising with it, reclaiming what it believes was always theirs. Stay away from the water, but know that soon, nowhere will be far enough.